but I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about sort of the OG developer health strategy that I got to experience when I was at G2Y all those years ago, which is the magical, the ever so wonderful 4 day
Uh,
work week that G2I has just been like. I think G2I was one of the early adopters, if not the pioneer. And since then, so much has happened. And you know, I've seen companies try and copy this from G2I. They start with a 4 day work week. They realize it's not maybe working for them, and they pivot to okay, not a 4 day work week, but a 32-hour work week. And so that means, you know, employees have to do 32 hours and they allocate that however they want. And I've seen a bunch of companies trying that out. So maybe we could speak to that. Specifically, I'm familiar with how it started, but how's it going and how has it affected G2I's narrative on developer
yeah,
health?
so this one thing that's really fun about working for G2I is that we are highly experimental and everybody is pretty on board with it. Like everybody knows that, okay, if we're trying something, it's not etched in stone, so things can evolve and change. And that was our story too. Like we basically started experimenting with the 4 day work week. It was a 1 year trial where it was half the company had every other Friday off. So there was like a blue team and a red team, and like one Friday, the blue team is off, next Friday, the red team is off. So we would alternate. And it seemed to have gone well enough that after a year, Gabe decided like everyone's just going to have a 4 day work week. The thing with that is that there were different teams responsible for different things that had different schedules. And so someone like me, I'm like, okay, I'll take every Friday off and it's fine. I don't work in sales. Like I'm not going to have somebody reach out to me on a Friday about something that could be really beneficial to the company. And so that kind of created this like opportunity to look like, okay, does it need to be Fridays and does like everybody have to take that off? So we kind of changed our thing to a 32-hour work week. So each team got to manage how their employees were spent how their employees were like working those 32 hours, and it meant that the teams that needed 5 day a week coverage had 5 day a week coverage, but everybody was still doing the 32 hours. And then it's just kind of like evolved. Like our team has changed and it's grown, and our goals have developed since then too. And so we have this underlining ethos, but it's so in the developer health OS, we have this concept of like boundaries having like top lines, middle lines, and bottom lines. And so a bottom line boundary is like a total non-negotiable. So like your non-negotiable might be like, I'm not working more than 50 hours a week. And then your middle line might be like, I'm taking a full hour for lunch. So like sometimes that might not happen. It's not the end of the world. But if you start missing that all the time, then like it's a signal that you're headed down the wrong path. And then your top line is like ideally where you want to be, where it's like, I'm not working more than 40 hours a week. And so for us, it's more like, we're not working more than 32 hours a week. And the bottom line is like, we're not working more than 40. So if you're consistently working 40 or more hours, you need to like raise your hand, adjust with your manager, and like figure out like why, you know, things are going over. But in any scenario, it's all we call it now results driven work. So like there's not a time card. Everybody is like highly autonomous and responsible for their work and their time and how they get things done. And you know, if you are constantly hitting the max on your bottom lines, then like just take a step back and reevaluate and let's have some conversations. But yeah, we're very, very big supporters of like breaking down the concept of like a mandatory 5 day, 40-hour work week.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that it's changed since I've been on. And I love that G2I keeps. I think this is something that I've not seen other companies do well. I've worked at a number of companies after G2I and before G2I, and I don't know that any company like truly experiments like at a company wide level as rapidly as G2I
You want
does.
to know why I think
Um,
it
that
works?
is so cool. I have to ask, you mentioned these.
Why I think it works at G2I is
Yeah.
because Gabe is transparent and vulnerable. And it's something that I noticed from him that's like I don't see it anywhere. And so there's like there's this humanity with the CEO and the founder where like at a lot of companies this is like, you know, this is like an untouchable person, unquestionable person. But Gabe is like always like, I want to try this. I've done all of this research. I think this will make things better for us. Let's try it out. And if you guys don't like it, let me know. And he'll really take that to heart. And if he tries something and it doesn't work, he'll be like, yeah, that didn't work. Thanks everyone for trying that out with me. Like, he's appreciative. And like, you just try again. He's really vulnerable and he's extremely transparent. And I think that's why we can all get on board and do things with him, because we're never questioning some ulterior motive or like, what's the real reason the company's offering us healthcare? Like, so I think that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. He also does this thing where he, correct me if I'm wrong, he will like radically own things. So it's not like we tried it and we failed. It's more like we tried it. Thank you for trying it with me, but I failed. He really owns the failures and says, "Hey, I thank you. I'm so thankful that you were willing to do this." Indeed, I learned so much. Some people describe me as a good leader, and I have to say I learned most of it from Gabe. So really, really appreciate that about him. He does this thing where he's, as you said, he's so open, but you can also sense that he means what he says and says what he means. I remember once I worked at a place where they asked us to do time tracking. Like literally like go on some like time, start the clock, and then you work, and then you stop the clock when you don't work. And I thought this feels a bit draconian for many reasons we can talk about. But I feel like in tech or in like cognitive work, you can't quantify it with time. Like if you're laying bricks, okay, you lay bricks for certain hours, and then you after some hours you build like a wall, ideally a house. You can't do that with code. It just doesn't work with cognitive work. And so I think the time thing is kind of lame. But anyway, so I pushed back on this and I questioned it and I said, hey, why? Like, are we being micromanaged? Do you suspect people aren't working? Like, this is very strange. Why are we doing this? And the answer was, oh, no. Like, it's totally fine. Just no big deal. But if you like record the time, then we can go to like some financial body and capitalize on that time and get a bunch of money back. To this day, I don't know what that means or how that works. And this is probably just ignorance on my part, but part of me and the broader team was like, that's just some business speak for they just want to keep track of who's like working and how much. And it's probably wrong, right? This is a big guess on intent, but it felt like that. If Gabe was to show up and be like, hey, can everybody hit record on a clock to get your time so we can capitalize on it and get money back, I would not hesitate. And I think this is sort of ties into what you're saying. He's just the kind of person where like you just believe him because he makes it very clear that he has nothing to hide.
He's never gonna make you feel like you got outsmarted or something. Always direct.
Yeah, and it's very clear. Yeah, and it's very clear that indeed he is there to give.